Welcome to the Think Podcast.
From what you were talking about earlier, it sounds like to have an idea of something or a presupposition, it's necessary for a deity to exist. Like, we can't have an idea of something like immaterial without a deity.
Oh, got it. Well, what I was talking about there was necessary truths, necessarily true propositions. You could take the laws of logic as an example, or the laws of thought, if you want to call them that. A is A is not A. For there to be any necessarily true propositions, to believe that is to tacitly or explicitly presuppose the existence of God. So that was what I was saying. Now I kind of go along with Cornelius Van Til, if you're familiar with who that is, the godfather of presuppositionalism, who said that all predication presupposes God. If you want to say, this is that, you are to affirm anything is to presuppose God, even tacitly. So then what your question is, why do I believe that? Or do you want to, now that I've explained that, do you want to rephrase your question?
Yeah, well, I guess my question is, why is that the case? Why can't you just, it seems like when you prove something, you say, this is that, it's self-referential. You're saying, well, this, because of the system, it works in like its own system. Yeah. A leads to B. So where does a deity, why is that a necessary piece? Why does it not work without a deity? Got it.
Okay, so maybe I can think of it in a couple different levels. I'm not sure which one's going to be the most sensible, but even if we just think about a truth claim, this is that. The very concept of truth presupposes God. And just because I could talk about this at length, and I have talked about it at length, I'm going to give you my web address. It's thethink.institute. And if you search for the very concept of truth, I'm pulling it up right now. If you search for the very concept of truth, it'll pull up my argument on why the very concept of truth presupposes God. And of course, now it's not coming up. So let me see if I can do this. The very concept. Here we go. Is that going to work? Essentially, the truth is an attribute of a proposition. If you're predicating something, you're making an affirmation, or saying that something is true or something is the case. What you're doing is you're using language, and you're presupposing logic, and you're also assuming that there's an external world out there. You're not speaking into the void. You're not speaking about the void. So language, the idea that you think that your words are going to mean the same thing and convey the same concepts that they would have 10 minutes ago. If you say the rock is on the table, you're presupposing that there's a continuity and a normality and a regularity to the universe such that language means the same thing. The meaning of language, the rules of language are not just free form and random, that there's a continuity and a reliability to the universe. That is a Christian presupposition. It accords perfectly well with the existence of the triune God of Scripture, the reality of the triune God of Scripture, I should say. Logic as well. The three fundamental laws of logic, but even if you want to substitute in different laws of logic, if you think that they're necessarily true, then you are presupposing that there are such things as immaterial, absolute, objective, universal, knowable laws, governing thought, governing speech, governing the way that we make sense of reality, rationally. That's a Christian presupposition. It makes perfectly good sense and accords perfectly well with a prior belief in the triune God of Scripture. There is no other metaphysical starting point that, you can try one, I guess, but, that can lead to that kind of conclusion other than the triune God of Scripture. And then the external world itself, the idea that you're presupposing that the external world is there. There is such a thing as the real world. The rock is on the table. My hat is on the table. There's such a thing as a hat, such a thing as a table. And that cosmos is intelligible to me, such that there's a correspondence between my own mind and the external world where I can describe things accurately about that external world. So these are all presuppositions that work well, that work perfectly well and have perfect accord with a Christian scheme of reality. And there is no other Christian scheme, there is no other metaphysical basis than the triune God of Scripture wherein these presuppositions make sense, or where you would arrive at these conclusions. And so that's why I believe it.
So it's that the Christian worldview does support these things, and
yes,
you're pretty certain that without this worldview, these things would not work. These ideas.
Yeah, that somewhere along the way there's going to be a fatal flaw, an internal contradiction, an inconsistency. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good answer.
Oh, well, thanks. Appreciate it. Great question.